very, very quickly, even after the first box was opened, you could tell. You really could tell that we were going to win it, because the figures were like 82%, 77%. You know, I mean, it was so exciting. Even now, like, I get a bit teary because it was just the joy of it was indescribable.
It's going to be the first time that I've ever been able to walk down the street and not be afraid to hold her hand, because everybody says it's okay now. Everybody says it.
Well, what does it mean to you to even hear that?
It means the world. I'm not less than anyone else.
Nederland heeft op dit gebied de eerste stap gezet. In 2001 is Nederland het eerste land dat het homohuwelijk legaliseert.
Dan verklaar ik als ambtenaar van de burgerlijke stand van Amsterdam dat u na ondertekening van de akte door het huwelijk aan elkander bent verbonden.
Ondertussen zijn daar nog 21 landen bijgekomen. In 2003 volgde België. Daarna volgden Spanje en Canada. Daarna Zuid-Afrika, Noorwegen en Zweden, Portugal, IJsland, Argentinië en delen van Mexico, Denemarken, Brazilië, Frankrijk en Uruguay. Delen van het Verenigd Koninkrijk, Nieuw-Zeeland, Luxemburg, de VS, Ierland en Groenland. En allerlaatst Colombia. De Ieren hebben massaal ja gezegd tegen het homohuwelijk. Ierland is het 19e land waar het homohuwelijk wordt erkend, maar het eerste land waar het via een referendum in de wet is opgenomen. Een mooie stap voorwaarts op weg naar gelijke rechten voor homo's en hetero's. Dit terwijl Ierland het laatste land in Europa was dat homoseksualiteit heeft gedecriminaliseerd in 1993. Toch is het wereldwijd nog altijd droevig gesteld met de acceptatie van homo's. In wel bijna 80 landen is homoseksualiteit nog strafbaar. Gelukkig werken steeds meer landen aan homo-emancipatie en aan het legaliseren van het homohuwelijk. Het referendum in Ierland heeft onder andere de discussie in Duitsland aangewakkerd. Waarom koos Ierland nou voor een referendum? Rachel Matthews McKay is een homorechenactiviste die een grote rol heeft gespeeld in de jarenlange strijd voorafgaand aan het referendum. Hoe en wanneer is deze strijd in Ierland begonnen?
In this country, it started officially in 2005. So Catherine Zappone and Anne-Louise Gilligan went away to Canada, got married, came back, and then of course came back and discovered that they weren't recognised under Irish law. So they brought a case against the state, and that unfortunately they lost that case. But what it did was it started a campaign, from it. All the different groups and interest groups and human rights groups decided enough was enough. It was time to move forward on this. So I suppose it took the best part of 10, 11 years for Ireland to recognise same-sex marriage. So actually what did happen was civil partnership was brought in. So that was just an interim measure. It was very exclusive, it was very specific. It was only for same-sex couples, not for everybody. And there were 158 differences between it and civil marriage.
Grain Healy is directrice van de Yes Campaign. Zij beaamt de vele verschillen tussen een civiel partnerschap en een huwelijk.
I think the lack of recognition of family is the biggest and most significant one. In other words, if you're in a civil partnership and you have children, one or other of the partners is not recognized as the second parent.
De pasgetrouwde Sarah McDivitt is het hiermee eens. Maar voor haar zijn ook andere verschillen belangrijk.
But the big difference, if I was to put it in a nutshell, is that marriage is protected under the Constitution in Ireland. So no one can mess with marriage. But civil partnership is just a law. So if a government came in tomorrow that didn't like it, they could get rid of it. Marriage is important to me, personally. It's so miserable and depressing to say this, but I want to make sure that if anything was to happen to me, that my wife would get my pension, get my house, get everything I owned. Or if there was something wrong with me in hospital, she'd make the decisions.
At the end of the day, It was the difference in status that was most important. That when you are married, you have the full constitutional protection and therefore are recognised fully as a citizen. In civil partnership, it's lesser. And in summary, that was the point.
Nadat in 2010 het civiele partnerschap werd ingevoerd, begon de echte strijd om het invoeren van het homohuwelijk. Healy had een tweestrijd in een referendum liever willen voorkomen.
We knew we never wanted to fight a referendum for a number of reasons. Firstly, you shouldn't have the majority voting on the rights of a minority. It's too dangerous and it's not fair. People's civil and human rights are things that are there. The government needs to implement them rather than be asking people to choose between one set and another.
It was a good thing that it was done as a referendum, because now it's very difficult to undo that. You have to have another referendum to change this referendum.
It is a much stronger provision now that we have won it, but it is a much more difficult thing to win than legislative change.
In de provincie Roscommon en South Leitrim werd er met 52% tegen gestemd. Het was de enige plek waar een nee-stem de overhand had. Dit is te wijten aan het feit dat het een landelijke provincie is waar veel oudere, gelovige en conservatieve mensen wonen. Sarah McDavid en Geraldine Stone waren een van de eerste koppels die trouwden in december. Zij boekten hun locatie voordat de stemresultaten van het referendum binnen waren. Hun locatie lag in Roscommon.
A lot of people thought that we kind of went, oh, there's the only no county, we'll get married there just to show them. But that's not what happened at all. It was that the day after we got engaged, just by a twist of fate, we'd never heard of this place. And it's on the road between Sligo and Dublin. So we stopped because Jer's family's coming from Dublin and my family's coming from Sligo. And we stopped and we saw it and we fell in love with it, and it was a castle and it was magical and all that. And we booked it. And then the referendum happened. Then the results came in and all my friends were texting me going, oh, I can't believe you're getting married in Roscommon after that. And but I'm really happy we got married in Roscommon, because I know loads of people in Roscommon who voted yes. And I feel like the no vote silenced them. And I feel like us getting married there and being celebrated in Roscommon in a positive way meant that those people, their voices were heard, those yeses were heard, and that was important to us.
You know, I suppose only 62% of the people voted yes. So there was another percentage of people that voted no, and they weren't all in Roscommon and South Leitrim. I don't want Roscommon and South Leitrim to just be painted as this, you know, this part of the country that just, you know, voted no and isn't welcoming, because it's not true.
Uiteindelijk heeft de nee-campagne in een korte tijd met weinig geld nog veel kunnen bereiken. Hoe hebben ze dit gedaan?
During the campaign, the arguments of the no side were very much about, you know, if there is marriage equality, marriage will be undermined. I think that's not true. I would say, and the figures are showing, there is now marriage equality and more people are getting married. So marriage as an institution has actually been strengthened. The no side would say, oh, children will suffer if we allow marriage equality because gay people will have children. All of the research shows that lesbian and gay people and their children have just as good parenting outcomes, in fact in some cases better, than straight people. And therefore the truth is that two people being able to get married and provide a really stable space to raise children is really good for children.
Barry Gardiner en Anthony Kinahan zorgen al enkele jaren voor pleegkinderen en zijn boos om de argumenten van de nee-kant.
We had a poster outside our estate here saying that two men could never replace a mother's love. Do you know that sort of way?
Well, we had a child staying with us.
That's
and
insulting.
That child looking at that.
That's insulting. You know, it's, you know, you'd posters all over Dublin, all over the country, with really negative, discriminatory slogans on them.
Thomas Finnegan heeft onder de naam Mothers and Fathers Matter de nee-campagne aangevoerd.
What were the main arguments or reasons to vote no?
I suppose the main one related to the rights of the child, to the child's right to have a mother and a father where possible, and in particular in relation to laws relating to adoption, assisted human reproduction and surrogacy, because the Yes campaign were looking to change the part of our constitution that deals with the family, which was Article 41. It would have meant, in effect, that the gay couples would have had a right, if the referendum passed, to have children via donor-assisted human reproduction and surrogacy. And that in itself would have deliberately deprived those children of knowing who their biological parents were and also having access to being brought up by their biological parents.
Barry en Anthony zijn al 17 jaar samen. Na hun civiel partnerschap wilden ze graag een kind adopteren.
In Ireland, if you want to adopt, you could either have to be a single person or a married couple. So we wanted to be a married couple. So that's what started us on the campaign trail.
Toch waren mensen nog erg bang voor het onbekende.
There was like, okay, well, if the gays can get married, well then they can go around robbing your kids, pretty much.
2 maanden voor het referendum werd al in de wet opgenomen dat ook homo's kinderen mochten adopteren. Veel Ieren waren hier nog niet van op de hoogte.
They didn't really have much of an argument, so what they had to do was they had to fabricate the truth in order to get an argument.
Over draagmoederschap bestaat in Ierland nog meer onduidelijkheid. Er zijn nog geen regels vastgelegd.
In raising the issue of surrogacy, they were trying to raise fears that people might have about, oh, we don't know anything about surrogacy. Do you mean if we vote yes, surrogacy will be introduced? So this is one of the things that a good no campaign does. It puts fears into people's heads in the hope that they will say, oh, I have a fear, so let's keep things as they are. And that was one of the things that the no campaign tried to do somewhat successfully, but in the end, I think Irish people saw through that.
I still think it's unjust, I still think it's unfair to children, I still think it obscures the real meaning of marriage. I think it's part of a process that Ireland has been on for the last maybe 15, 20, 25 years, that in relation to marriage there's this general disregard for marriage, disregard for its importance. It's a fundamentally adult-oriented approach to family law, and I think it's unjust, I think it's mistaken, and I think it's there's a little bit of a tragedy about it.
Fergus O'Farrell van de Methodist Church stemde ja, maar vele gelovigen houden liever vast aan oude tradities.
I mean, religions throughout the world can be very oppressive and very damaging and very misogynistic and very anti-gay, and the record is not good of religions in that regard.
We live in a country where the suicide rate is one of the highest in Europe and has been for a number of decades, and there is a direct correlation between sexuality and coming out and the secrecy and the fear and the shame around sexuality.
My best friend at the time, he felt, he couldn't come out. He ended up killing himself, and I know his parents now would have completely accepted them. They would have way rather that than him killing himself.
Rachel is right that the statistic is very worrying. I would hope that in the long term we will see a drop in the numbers of those who are still feeling alone and lost and unloved because of their sexual orientation.
Stellen van hetzelfde geslacht mogen niet trouwen in de kerk. Als de ontwikkelingen van het scheiden van de katholieke kerk en de staat zo doorgaat, is dit over een paar jaar misschien wel mogelijk.
Ireland would have been considered a very religious country. The Holy Catholic Ireland, it seemed as if it would never happen. Likewise with Spain, but it did and it has. So, there's nothing set in stone.
Civil rights before religious rights. And I think that's the big thing that the marriage equality thing did. It's like that people are more aware of, like, okay, we don't have to just sit here and accept, well, I live in a Catholic country, so that's how it should be. Do you know, that sort of way?
I think the Catholic Church definitely do not hold the power they used to.
We are seeing changes. More and more people are not getting married, or they're having children outside of marriage, or they're having different wedding ceremonies. So
90% of primary schools in Ireland are run by the Catholic Church. Still, in the year 2016, that's disgraceful.
As a democratic state, it doesn't make sense that the church owns so much of the hospitals and schools. So there is a campaign that the state take them back, or that the church own fewer schools and hospitals.
Ook drag queens hebben een grote rol gespeeld in het verkrijgen van meer rechten voor de homoseksuele samenleving in Ierland.
And we've been a really strong Catholic country for such a long time, so the shift is imminent. It's already kind of happened, and it's just going to keep moving away from the Catholic Church because we've been under their thumb for so many years. So it's time to say bye-bye.
I think the Catholic Church they've destroyed it for themselves. Yeah. Their management of issues like women, their treatment of women is hideous. Their child abuse, the gays.
The list goes on.
It's like a long
The list goes on.
Their days are numbered. Bye, Pope.
Let's see how many people are still going there in 50 years' time.
We have to move towards that idea of making it possible to be people of faith holding beliefs, but you can't then use those beliefs and have the state enforcing them.
But society is changing, and we're now recognising much more diversity in the makeup of the Irish nation.
It's not just a matter of, you have a marriage referendum and now it's really easy to be gay in Ireland. It's not that easy.
The future's bright for an LGBT person in Ireland. Like we have equal rights pretty much across the board now. I mean, everything that we were looking for 6 years ago, we pretty much have.
There aren't any words to describe how life-enhancing it is to be told that we accept you, that you're inclusive, that you are equal in society. Obviously, there's still lots and lots of changes to be made and steps to be taken, but this was it felt like a battle against good and evil. I'm being highly dramatic now, but it felt like that, and it was like the goodies won. I mean, it was indescribable. It was just one of the best things that I've ever experienced in my entire life, actually.
But there's no way Ireland would have changed the way it's changed had we not had that referendum.
And there was a very good debate in public, and the people got to decide, so they owned the decision. And I think that's very important, rather than feeling some particular party just passed it. And I think if you were opposed to it, you have to accept you had your chance to put your case.
And voting yes, they weren't just saying yes to the gays getting married, they were saying yes to this is the kind of Irish society we now live in. The Ireland of the past, all those dark days, the church being so overwhelming, the control, all of that stuff is gone. And by voting yes on this issue, we are showing ourselves to be a modern nation, and we're happy to show that.
It still took its mental and emotional toll on us. So I really wouldn't recommend it for every country to try and do it in a referendum.
People were attacked, people were spat at, people were chased down the street for campaigning for marriage equality.
If it can be legislated, go for it.
There's a lot of countries on the planet that have to catch up with human rights.
But that we can sit here and we can say that we fought and we fought and we fought hard, and that somebody in Uganda, or some young fella in Russia, or somebody who's living under fear and hatred and hating for themselves for who they are because they're gay, they can look over to Ireland and say, oh God, that Catholic country is after voting in marriage equality. That, for me, is amazing.
Which is which?
This is where being two grooms is a bit complicated. The inscription tells it.
Oh my God.
This is my one.
Okay.
That's my one.
Okay.
Okay.
Just pay me back with